Another version of Wuthering Heights, the 30,000th adaptation, well, alright. Margot Robbie, Jacob Elordi, and others, with songs by Charlie XCX. Well, it's a cold world back when Emily Bront was writing novels such as this before she died. From the pain of tuberculosis, it must have sucked. Not as much as this movie, what the fuck? Another version of Wuthering Heights by Emerald Fennell, well, alright. Promising Young Woman, Saltburn I liked, but not so much this flick. It's another version of Wuthering Heights with great cinematography, alright. A cast that's certainly loaded to the tits and many boring moments. Wuthering Heights 2026 was written and directed by Emerald Fennell, who did Promising Young Woman and Saltburn, two films that I really liked, based on a novel by Emily Bront. Wuthering Heights, not Saltburn or Promising Young Woman. That would have certainly been very, very odd if Emily could have seen into the future and somehow done Promising Young Woman. That being said, how you feel about Emerald Fennell's movies will possibly skew your view on how this movie may go. Now, also, it depends on what you think of the book, Wuthering Heights, what you think of the many adaptations across the big and smaller screen, and what do you think of me ruining a Pat Benatar song? Because I just want to have fun. Because I did not have fun with this version of Wuthering Heights. I'm not even mixing words here. I'm going to throw everything about the book out the window. Whether this is a faithful adaptation or an interpretation or whatever. Whatever Emerald said, I'm tossing that over here. Get the fuck out of here, Wuthering Heights comparisons. You ever seen a guy say goodbye to Wuthering Heights comparisons? Once. From 1939, across the big and small screen, many good cast members, many, spins. Some people have been able to adapt most of the book. Some have just adapted half the book with skipping certain chapters. That's basically just the rundown right there. We have Heathcliff, we have Kathy, and depending on what spin you get, either Heathcliff is a full-on asshole or Kathy is a full-on asshole. Or in the case of the 1939 one, to be perfectly honest, there were no redeeming people in that besides Ellen, the maid. She was innocent. What a queen she was. My God, I'm 45 years old mentioning that. Actually, the actress who played Ellen was pretty good. And realistically, the cast in this is very goddamn loaded. Margot Robbie as Kathy or Catherine. Jacob Elordi or Elordi, I actually don't know how to say it, who plays Heathcliff. Not the cat, not the wonderful, wonderful cat. And then we have Nellie, known Down, Down, Baby, No Street in a Raincoat, Shimmy, Shimmy, Cocoa Puff, No, played by Hung Chow. That probably could have gone a whole lot better, but let's just get to it now. We also, Nellie, by the way, is the hired help for Kathy's family. We also have Isabella, who becomes the sister-in-law of Kathy, played by Alison Oliver. I'll be perfectly honest, between the two of them, I would have chosen Alison. I'm not even basing it on the particular... I'm not basing it on the particular actresses. I'm basing it on the characters. Even though Isabella was a little bit strange in this one, she probably would have made me a lot happier. That being said, we also have Shazad Latif, who plays Edgar. We have Martin Clans, however you say it, who plays Mr. Earnshaw. Yes, Earnshaw is actually a name that they keep in this. We have Joseph without his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, played by Evan Mitchell. Amy Morgan, my, and Jessica Crockett, or Nappet. Crockett. There was a lot of crock in this goddamn movie. The whole thing is just looking at it as a movie, it is beautifully shot. There are some great, set pieces in this, some lush landscapes, and the music isn't all that bad. The problem is, all of the chemistry that should have been, between Margot Robbie and Jacob was replaced by chemistry that basically exists between two high school drama students that can barely stand each other. They barely tolerate each other. And, you want to make them kiss in a love story? Well, fuck you. The Romeo and Juliet Baz Luhrmann version actually was something that divided a whole lot of people back in, I believe, 1996. That at least had fun with the source material. Yes, it twisted around a lot of things. And yes, there were questionable things about it, but it had a pretty fun cast. It also had a great song by Garbage, #1 Crush. This movie has songs by Charlie XCX, who is very talented. I recently saw her in The Moment. That sounded a lot dirtier once I said it. I mean the mockumentary concert thing that she did that I didn't end up doing a video review of, but it was fine for what it was. It wasn't necessarily great. Somebody called it Brat Spinal Tap or Spinal Brat, and that was actually pretty creative. In this one, you basically don't get any, nuance of the story. You just basically get that shoved out the fucking window for Emerald basically letting... I don't know what the fuck she was thinking doing this goddamn thing. I mean, I'm just going to be perfectly honest. There were parts in this movie where I was worried it was going to, just fully fall asleep. There were maybe 10 people in the goddamn theater, and I'm actually convinced half of them fell asleep. And in regards to the eroticism or, the stuff where it's like they're going to go more carnal and everything, yeah, this movie could have used some goddamn carnal knowledge, because all the eroticism is about as erotic as a sex ed video showed to an 8th grade health class. Having been in 8th grade, having seen some of that sex ed stuff, it was fucking bullshit, and somehow that stuff was more erotic than this. There is absolutely zero chemistry between Margot and Jacob. It's almost alarming how uncharismatic both of them are, and this are practically sleepwalking through this thing. And it seems like everybody in this movie sustained several major head injuries. It also simultaneously is too dragged out and also is too rushed with some of this stuff. It keeps some elements of the story. It looks like a period piece. It's wearing the skin of one, but it has absolutely no flesh or bone or soul contained within its hollowed out husk. Husk, husk, husk. Shout out to John Nohr, the Berserker, like anybody would know who the fuck that is. Problem is, the movie just does not work overall. I'm going to talk about a few things in the spoiler section, but realistically, this is just very boring as a movie. It is not even romantic. It is not the greatest love story ever told. It is not erotic. It is not even mildly entertaining. I actually was alarmed by just how boring and bland this thing was. One of the worst films of the year, sad to say, as somebody a fan of her previous 2 films. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. There you go. Let's get to that. So, yeah, we started with a hanging. It's hanging year, and it seemed like young Catherine was really excited about that. I guess young children never got to really see anything back in whatever century this was. Maybe it was the 18th and a half century. Had the silly thing in reverse. The original story takes place between 1771 and 1801. They took Hindley, threw him out the goddamn window, and they just have... They have the father being the drunk, the gambler, and the rambler, and I guess he always will. And he does take in Heathcliff off the street because Heathcliff didn't actually have a name. It was actually the name that Catherine gave him. And yes, we get a little bit between the two young actors that play Catherine and Heathcliff actually are fine. I think they would have done better expanding more on that, quite frankly, because once they got to be adults, wasn't really all that interesting. But we get a little bit of that, and then we get where basically they stay out too late on the father's birthday. The father gets pissed. Heathcliff takes the bullet, takes a whipping. He says, I will do this to protect you, basically. Now, I do want to point out, by the way, that depending on how you interpret the novel, but also how you interpret the other movies, Heathcliff is not a particularly good guy. And yeah, it could have been his upbringing. Kathy's also not that great either, because she wants riches beyond her wildest dreams. Once the Lintons move in, that's where Edgar comes in. She does end up getting endlessly fascinated by the Linton lifestyle and ends up actually injuring her foot conveniently trying to peer over the goddamn thing. I have to point out Alison Oliver is doing her best as Isabella. And actually, had they spun a little bit more of the story towards her, I think this movie could have worked, because she is clearly off her tits. At one point, once Edgar and Kathy end up getting together, she gives her a wedding gift that is a doll handcrafted with Kathy's own hair that she took out of her hairbrush. That's pretty goddamn creepy. But Isabella means well. And also Heathcliff, for all his, panache and all his real, world skills, able to do the hard labor and everything, he can't read. That's something that's referenced a little bit later on. But I do want to point out, by the way, that this tries almost for a Princess Bride-like situation with, farm boy, all that, and none of the charisma with that. We literally go from Heathcliff and Kathy as teenagers or children, and then we go to Heathcliff getting a shoe thrown at him. Who throws a shoe? Catherine does. And the romance in Hathor, the Fighting Eagle, was better. And that was almost incestuous, the way they made that scene. That was more believable than the shit in this. So, yeah, after injuring her foot, she basically stays at the Linton's household. That her house is in disarray. She basically abandons her goddamn family while her foot's on the mend. Edgar and her do end up getting married. Heathcliff is not very happy about this because they do love each other. But the thing is, in the 1939 version, Kathy was kind of a bitch. Heathcliff wasn't all that great either. And also, we just had no real character to root for. You don't even really get to root for Heathcliff in this because he's almost a caricature of what a guy from the 18th or 19th century would have been. A jilted lover or a childhood crush or whatever the fuck. And also, Margot Robbie does have talent. She was great in Barbie and has been good in other stuff. She's totally miscast here. Totally miscast. No sympathy for Catherine at all. Yes, she loves Heathcliff, but she wants that rich life. And he can't give her the life that she wants. And also Nellie's there. And Kathy gets so paranoid she starts to suspect Nellie might actually be part of the problem and might be the reason as to why things are not going all that well. Like why Heathcliff took off for America. They don't mention that he went off to America, but he went off to America to get some riches. And then he ends up coming back and buying the goddamn old house, Wuthering Heights, because that's the name of that's the area that they live in. And meanwhile, Kathy is living with Edgar. Isabella falls for Heathcliff. They don't go nearly as far with that as they could. And by the time they do, it feels forced. So we do end up getting, a bit of an affair, so to speak, between Kathy and Heathcliff. And I can't emphasize enough just how unerotic this whole thing is. There's a point with egg yolks spilling down and plenty of back shots. And I mean, this is the second most back shots I've seen in a movie that's on the big screen. You don't want to know about the first. Trust me, you really don't. Let's just say the floor is a lot stickier in other cinema. And that being said, we get a point where there's like this fish and this gelatin, and Margot's doing this and sticking her finger in there. Also, at one point, she's blasting herself, like, because vibrators hadn't been invented yet. And Heathcliff sees that and ends up tasting it. I don't give a shit. However you guys get down, that's whatever. Like, I don't necessarily care for that stuff, but whatever. I just find it, I was like, this should have actually been hot, I guess, as Paris Hilton used to say. It was not hot. It was not hot at all. And then this comes on the heels of her trying to peer down and seeing some guy attach like horse stuff to this one woman to ride her like a horsey. Restraints don't work like that. Trust me, I know. I will not expand further upon that. But we see, I guess it's an attempt to like build something between Heathcliff and Kathy, but it doesn't work. Anytime they get together and he's either going down on her or they're fucking in a carriage or what, none of it feels like it's earned. And Edgar basically realizes that she's with child. Nellie realizes she's with child. You need to stop doing this. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be sleeping around, especially if you're expecting a child. But I did laugh at the lines, kiss me and let us both be damned. I said, fist me and let us both be crammed. But that line would have made just as much sense as anything else. And we just the endless, it's somehow endlessly padded, yet also simultaneously never allows anything to breathe. Like, none of the characters feel like they're actual, like, people. They just feel like they're caricatures. And then, as, she tries to cut things off with Heathcliff at the basically, Nellie suggests she probably should do that. Kathy tries to get rid of her. Then Edgar suddenly finds out about this stuff and says, look, I'm not going to divorce you and everything, but stop doing this. To be fair, looking at Edgar the state he was, he wouldn't have found a woman like Kathy. Naturally, that ends up being a bit of a problem. Heathcliff then ends up in the room of Isabella and basically says he will treat her like absolute dog shit, literally in this case. And do you want me to stop? Do you want me to stop? I'm sorry, Alison Oliver, I would choose a woman like that 10 out of 10 times. I mean that with respect, because I think she's actually a very attractive woman. But they're going to go off like that because she's so ready to, like, just be married. You didn't have to be married back then, ladies. I mean, you really didn't. But then again, a lot of women didn't have rights. Wuthering rights, as it were. So, basically, he wants letters mailed to, like, written out and mailed because he can't read, he can't write. But if, Isabella does this, and he'll treat her right. None of the letters get read because Nellie keeps burning them. Nellie wants Catherine to stop this whole thing. Catherine, by the way, is not doing well. She's disheveled. She's not doing well for the baby. And she mentions that the baby was gone at one point. Nellie dismisses this. It actually turns out later that the baby did, in fact, die and has been whatever, almost calcifying in her, causing sepsis, whatever the fuck. So, yeah, Catherine's not doing all that well. Heathcliff and Isabella ain't doing all that well because Nellie goes over to tell Heathcliff to stop this stuff and sees that he's got Isabella chained up like a dog. And that sounds like it should be darkly funny or it should be earned, but no, it's just there. Like, the movie totally just spins its wheels after a while. And then, Nellie ends up basically calling for the doctor. Edgar finds out about, the fact that she knew about the baby going. She says, I thought she was just saying it. I didn't realize it was the case. You're fired. And after Kathy has been absolutely cruel to Nellie, I cannot emphasize no redeeming characters in this besides Isabella, who's probably got severed heads in her room. But again, I've been with crazy chicks like that, so there you go. And Nellie isn't particularly good either, but Catherine's kind of treated her like shit. There's a lot of really dog shit characters in this. Word is sent to Heathcliff, or Heathcliff somehow finds out that she's dead, or dying. So he rides along. Kathy is talking to Nellie. They share one violin where she, like, whispers something to Nellie that seemingly is like a freaking manifesto with how long it takes. And she dies. Because of all the stuff happening, all the illnesses, all that stuff. They even put leeches, Attack of the Catherine the Great leeches. And that's it. Basically, Edgar tells Heathcliff, you might not want to go in there. No, go. I will go there. I will go in there. He does. And then we get a montage of all this stuff. Oh, by the way, the blood from the baby poured out. So I guess maybe once she died, the baby... I don't know. It looked cool, but cool visuals will only carry you so far. So Heathcliff is talking to her. We get a flashback thing of where he says, no, I'll take everything for you. No, just stay with me. This kind of stuff. It's not romantic. It's not even sweet. It's not endearing in the slightest. It is two pieces of shit that just are together. Like, or just... They did a better job building these characters in the goddamn 1939 version. That movie wasn't even perfect. The Juliette Binoche version was pretty goddamn good. I don't mind stuff that goes away from the source material, but good God, if you can't even make a good movie, even a competent movie, this movie is incompetent. So yeah, that's pretty much just where it ends. I mean, we get some music and then sends us off. So yeah, that's Wuthering Heights. Better make a whole lot of money this weekend and possibly next weekend because it's going to flame out quickly. Once word gets out about this, I do not see this doing well. And Emerald Fennell, swing and a miss. Because I really like Promising Young Woman. Excuse me. Promising Young Woman. There were people that didn't necessarily like the ending. I did. I didn't necessarily like, some of the ways they showed certain assault, but it is what it is. They didn't shy away from that stuff. And I like the ending. Also, I can't hear, Miss Newton's Angel of the Morning anymore, or properly the same way. And I can't hear Murder on the Dance Floor the same way again after Saltburn. You know what I'm talking about. And this movie just makes me never want to pick up any classic novel again. I'm actually starting to question if Emerald is a good filmmaker, or maybe I was just entertained by Saltburn. F. Wuthering Heights gets an F, so there you go. Agree, disagree what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Redland. Until we revisit the British Yorkshire moors again, happy trails to you.